Thanks for that introduction. Just while the presentation is getting going, I'd like to introduce you to Horizon Gold. We're a new gold company. A bit of background behind the company: Panoramic Resources used to own this project, and last year they had exploration success in both their Savannah project, which was very exciting and is a different story, and then also Gum Creek. They couldn't develop both projects, so they've decided to spin out Gum Creek into its own company. And in December last year, we raised $15 million and subsequent listing on the ASX. So, our necessary disclaimers. So we've got a very strong board and management team who have had a history of finding resource projects and putting them into production. Gum Creek has a very large resource base, 1.25 million ounces, 2.25 grams per tonne. It's produced over 1 million ounces of gold on a very large tenement belt. Our exploration team, we've taken a completely different approach to exploration, and we have a new data set which is driving some really exciting targets, which I'll run through shortly. We've got a clear focus. This is the sole project for Gum Creek. It's previously been owned by companies who have had alternative focuses, and so it's been a bit of a sleeper. And given the results, which I'll run through shortly, we think it certainly deserves a lease of its own. We're well funded, having just raised $15 million. We've got $12.5 million of cash in the bank. We've already started drilling, and we're going to be spending as much money of that in the ground that we possibly can, and the news flow will be coming shortly. As a quick snapshot, we've only got 76 million shares on issue. We're trading at 31 cents. We listed at 40 cents, so we're down a little bit. So if you need to get in, you're getting in lower than what the seed investors came in at. So enterprise value of just $12 million. It is a very tight shareholder base. Panoramic Resources, who previously owned the project, still own half of it, 51%, and Zeta Resources have a substantial, along with JP Morgan as well. So these three chaps you can see up the top, it's a very strong and diverse board. Peter Harold, who'd be known to many people here, is the founder of Panoramic Resources. He's a process engineer with over 30 years' experience. Peter Venn is a geologist with over 30 years' experience. Paul Bennett is a mining engineer, over 20 years' experience, and quite a lot of experience in financing projects and getting them into production. We've also been able to retain, most importantly, the services of John Hicks. Many of you also know John. He's been accountable for him and his team for finding some very large projects, including the Savannah North project, which is a very exciting story. He's also, and his team have found over 600,000 ounces of gold here at the Gum Creek project. So having that resource base is really important for us moving forward. So Gum Creek, it's located about 640 k's north east of Perth. It's a very large tenement package. It's got 1.25 million ounces of gold at a very good gold grade, 2.25 grams per tonne. All the key resources are held on granted mining lease, which predates native title, so that puts us in a very good position going forward if we need to, or when we would hopefully get this back into production. We've recently identified 14 new exploration targets, which we're really keen to, I'll explain to you shortly, but very exciting. The prior owners also have done scoping studies on this with some very encouraging results, and I'd encourage you to go and have a look at some of those results, but it certainly indicates a potential pathway for getting this project into production. It's got a lot of existing infrastructure, and the water quality is very good on site, which is very important for processing. So you can see some of the other players around us. We've got Metals X, Doré Resources, Ramelius, Middle Island, and Goldfields. Of note is the Wiluna operations, who they held our project for some time too. So that's the Blackham Resources, obviously. In order to understand this project, you kind of got to understand a bit of the history behind it. So mining ceased in 2005. That was when Legend Mining had this project, but most of the companies that have owned this have had prior priorities in other projects which have been going on. So it's been a very fragmented history. Panoramic had this for 6 years, but they had their nickel operations which they were focusing on, and nickel's a pretty tough business. Apex Mining, well, they had their Wiluna operations at the time, and that was their focus. Legend Mining had their Mount Gibson. Rimco had their Mount Selwyn. So it's been a bit of a sleeper to a large extent, and it's been quite fragmented. So we think this is a really good opportunity for a focused company like ours to make some great success out of it. Our strategy to get this back in production, which is our ultimate aim, is three-pronged. We have some very good resources, so it's resource extensions and infill drilling. Go and get some regional exploration. We have some very, very good new targets for regional exploration, but also continue some development studies. We have some refractory resources along with free milling resources, so we plan to continue the metallurgy in that space in particular. So we own a lion's share of this greenstone belt. It's about 110 kilometres long, 24 kilometres wide. It's an Archean. It's got the right rocks, iron-rich dominated BIF units with both volcanic and sedimentary. From a structural perspective, regionally seated, quite deep shear pathways which are very favourable for gold mineralisation. Like I said, our resources are a combination of both open pit and underground resources, and also some refractory and non-refractory resources. So what I'd like to do now is just step through some of our key resources and hopefully explain to you why we think there's some very good depth potential and strike extensions to hopefully build on that. This is one of our larger resources. It's called Wilson's. So it's three discrete chutes. It goes between 5 to 12 metres thick at grades between about 4 to 8 grams per tonne. So from a mining perspective, it's fantastic. John Hicks, many of you would probably know. He's very excited and very optimistic that these chutes here will just keep on continuing with depth down plunge. We've currently got about 400,000 ounces there going at about 5.5 grams per tonne. So it's a fantastic resource. This diagram you can see on the left is a conceptual mine plan for Wilson's. Our intent would hopefully to be able to try and grow this resource base. Heron South. At Heron South, you can see there was an existing open pit. And what the previous mine, when it was in operation, their processing plant was, and what we've currently got, it's only 600,000 tonne per annum. It's quite a small processing plant. So all they would mine would be the oxide layer. Not always, but most of the time. And when they got down to the fresh rock, they would stop. So even though there was some fantastic mineralisation, it was too hard to put through the mill. They didn't have a big mill for it. So some of the grades here are absolutely incredible. There's 6 metres at 37 grams per tonne, 2 metres at 41 grams per tonne, and it was never taken because it couldn't be put through the mill. So our story is build up a resource base, go and put in a mill which can actually handle that amount, that hardness of product, which isn't particularly hard, but something that can do 1.5 million tonne per annum, somewhere in that order. So we've commenced drilling this to infill and strike extension, and we're waiting on assays as we speak. And this is quite typical. Most of the pits here, which is about 20 pits, have mineralisation directly underneath them. It's quite unbelievable. The Swan is directly adjacent to the main processing area. It's kind of a similar sort of story to Heron South. Some of the grades are very good. Our intent is to go in and understand what's structurally controlling this mineralisation, and then and put down some further holes, hopefully extend the resources. But as you can see, 11 metres at 6.7 grams per tonne, 65 metres at 2.3. They're very good numbers, very, very good numbers. Likewise at Swift, 21 metres at 4.4, 29 metres at 3.3 grams per tonne. Some fantastic results there. So our intention is to go and to drill some of this out. This is where it gets exciting. So last year, we have compiled for the first time a fully integrated data set of our geological knowledge. It's never been done before for this project. We flew high quality magnetics and geophysics over the project, and then combined that with existing geochemical, geological and our drilling database, and we've come up with the help of New Exco, 14 new geophysical targets for follow-up drilling. Now, one of the most exciting ones was this one at Wilson's. So Wilson's itself has a very low percentage of sulfides in the mineralisation. So we didn't think it would come up on geophysics. We ran IP over it, lo and behold, shone out like a Christmas tree. So we're going, well, that's very, very exciting. We've run the geophysics then along that structural belt. Now this does an outcrop, so it's never been accurately mapped before. So that's one thing which we've done, but it also defined 14 zones of nearly identical chargeability to that of Wilson's, which already has 400,000 ounces at 5.5 grams per tonne. So we think this is very, very exciting. We've been on the ground in the last few weeks doing ground IP, and some of these lines that you can see here are the ground IP lines that we've run, and we've found another 4. We've drilled 5 of these targets now, and we're waiting on the assay results, which should be due later this month. So that's it's very, very exciting. They're not particularly deep either, by the way. They're only at about 100 to 150 metres deep. But if it comes out anything like Wilson's, then that'll be great. Half the problem we've got with Wilson's, it's at 400,000 ounces. You need a little bit more. So if you can find a little bit more, then it's going to be game on for us. It's very exciting. The prior owners last year did a scoping study based on just some of the free milling resources. It was for 3 open pits, building a new plant, 1 million tonnes per annum. The results were quite good. I'd encourage you to go and have a look at it. I guess from our perspective, this gives us a potential pathway to be able to get this back into production. But given the exploration results, we think it's better that you go and try and bulk this up to be a bit bigger than what it currently is prior to progressing those studies further. One of the benefits of this project is the existing infrastructure on site. There's an existing airstrip which we currently fly into. It's still rated. There's a camp which is being maintained. There's an existing processing facility, tailing storage dams. If you have to go and build this, they're quite expensive. There's a ready-to-use ROM. Here's our processing plant. If we were to put it back in production, then it would need a reasonable amount of work. But the fuel tanks, so there's existing infrastructure which is quite beneficial. One of the areas which we see we can certainly add value is being able to incorporate the refractory resources into a future mining plan. Now, some people poo-poo refractory resources and go, oh, it's all too hard. But there's 2 things I'd like to remind you. There has been a lot of successful refractory stories, and 2, that every ore body is different. Now, the test work that we've done and have done recently on the refractory resources shows that we can produce a really good concentrate. We can get over 90% recoveries into just 10% of the mass. So from an economics perspective, that means you only have to be treating 10% of the mass from your concentrate. So that has very good benefits to your operating and your capital costs. We've also shown our met test work that we can get 99% recoveries by magnetic separation, and that removes the pyrrhotite. And by removing the pyrrhotite, which preferentially oxidises, that has a big impact on our operating costs depending on the next stage of the process. In terms of actually treating the ore, we've done a whole raft of test work and shown that it's metallurgically and technically possible to treat this by POX, by the Albion process, and alkaline leach, bacterial and roasting. Now this project was previously owned when it was in the Apex days or owned by Apex, which had the Wiluna plant. Now, the Wiluna plant is obviously at the time had the bacterial leach. So most of the test work has been focused around bacterial leach. What we're trying to do is find a pathway for treating the refractory resources, which adds further value compared to bacterial leach because that was relatively expensive. We think we've found a way. So it comes down to economics. So we've engaged GR Engineering, and they've just delivered us a report to find out if there's alternative ways based on the test work to treat this refractory resources. And they concluded that the operating and capital cost of treating the resources by the Albion process or the pressure oxidation was significantly lower than bacterial leach. So we find that is very, very exciting, and we'll be using these results to go forward to try and work out a best pathway for incorporating refractory resources into future mine plans. Is it just a refractory project? Is it just a free milling, or is it a combination of both? You bulk it right up. As a peer comparisons, the top graph here we've compared them with ASX-listed pre-production gold-focused companies who have JORC-compliant resources. The average of that we work out is about $45 an ounce. We're trading at about $9, so we think we're very undervalued on a dollar per ounce basis. We have good ounces and grade. And the graph at the bottom compares us with our peers on a grade and resource basis. So the line here shows grade of various companies. So we're certainly up there in terms of grade. And then this line here shows the resource size. So, we're trading, in comparable with, the Eastern Goldfields and the Gascoynes, but clearly they're trading at much, much higher premiums. We've got an EV of just $10 million at the moment. So just some peer comparisons. So in summary, it's a very, very large greenstone belt. We've got a very good experienced team and board we've retained. It's very good grade. We've got multiple exploration targets which we've taken a completely new look at and done things very differently to how people have done these things previously. We're cashed up. We're going to be spending the money in the ground. There's going to be the news flow coming out as we get those results. So we're very, very excited and look forward to updating the market as those results come out. So thanks very much for your time.